Yes, please do. Okay, so hello everybody, and thank you, Shivani, for the introduction. Um, this is, I had several comments when I showed people my little Stardew avatar, so I put the link on the Sage board. Basically, I want everybody to be able to follow with me on the Sage board, which is, did you send the link to that? You can get the link for that, or if you want to search for it, you can go to the Hawaii server or Hawaii hub, search for the room HITC workshop. And then within the HITC workshop, there's only going to be one board, but that board is going to be intro to game design, which I now say misspelled. But okay. So let's go over what I'm going to try to talk about here today in this workshop. I'm going to try to talk very briefly about what are games, why are they fun, and then we're going to do a little activity where we try to analyze some games that I hope you guys have never seen before and see if you can identify some of the game aspects about them, just so we can talk about are they fun, are they interesting, and so on, who are they made for, and things like that. Then we're going to talk a little bit about what is the design process, which is in general something that I think students should be aware of, but in this case we'll also talk specifically about elements in the design process that are applicable for game design. We'll talk about what rules are needed to make a game, and we'll talk about what you specifically can do next, if you're interested. So, what is a game? I think in the abstract I included this definition, the voluntary attempt to overcome unnecessary obstacles. But we're scholars here, and scholars really enjoy hearing their own voices, so there's a lot of other definitions. For example, a system in which players engage in an artificial conflict defined by rules that results in a quantifiable outcome, which is a very vague way of saying something. We have a version, a game is an activity involving player decisions, seeking objectives within a limited context. And you have this, a game has ends and means, an objective, an outcome, and a set of rules to get there. So people have been trying to get to the definition of games in various ways. There's this definition by Roger Kawa that says that the game needs to have, I don't know where I'm looking at. I hope that everybody can see me online. So that there are 6 aspects that a game should have. It should be free, meaning the game is, the playing is not obligatory. If it were, it would at once lose its attractive and joyous quality as diversion. It is separate, circumscribed within limits of space and time, defined and fixed in advance, uncertain, the course of which cannot be determined, nor the result attained beforehand, and some latitude for innovations being left to the player's initiative, which is a very fancy way of saying choices should matter. Right? Unproductive, creating neither goods nor wealth, nor new elements of any kind, and except for the exchange of property among the players, ending in a situation identical to that prevailing at the beginning of the game. Which is again a very long way of saying you're not really supposed to get something out of it necessarily. Governed by rules. Under conventions that suspend the ordinary laws and for the moment establish new legislation which alone counts, and make-believe accompanied by a special lawlessness of a second reality or of a free unreality as against real life. So it's a very flowery way of describing what games are. And these are just a few of the definitions that you'll see that scholars have defined. Some of them are not, there are some that are even a lot more formal than these, but I just find them kind of intriguing to kind of be aware of and see where people have tried to put their finger on what is a game and what isn't a game. Between all of those definitions, there's a lot of variability, but it kind of seems like what combines games is this idea of goals and rules. It seems that way. But then we have some cases, let's say in this example, The Sims 4, where maybe the goals are not necessarily all that important. There's no specific win conditioning for the game. You're just doing it for the experience itself. So it seems that even this agreed upon union of the definitions of goals and rules, even that is not necessarily something that would define every kind of game. So from all of this, what is the takeaway? We kind of know it when we see it, right? So we know a game when we see a game. We get all of those other qualities. We feel free. We make believe. We know that we get to go back to the real world and nothing will happen and so on. They're all important, but at the end of the day, we kind of define our own games, and it doesn't have to follow a specific set of rubrics that define it. That's it. So let's talk about some things that people usually do define when they talk about games. And if there's anyone online that have a question or a comment, then please ask in the chat, and I'm sure Shivana will draw my attention to it. So we talked about rules, and when we have the professional jargon of game design, people usually refer to this as mechanics. So what are mechanics? It's a way to define what are the obstacles in the game. What are the actions that the player is allowed to do? How will each of these actions affect what we call the game state, right? But games are a bit more complicated than just their set of their rules. So we know that games sometimes require, logic skills. So you have to think about it. Sometimes games require luck. Sometimes games require twitch skills, which is moving something really, really quickly. So how do you accommodate for these kinds of things within a written set of rules? It's not necessarily something that is trivial to do, right? You can say, well, the rule is if you roll this number, but it doesn't exactly explain what is happening in the game. So there is another word that is closely associated with mechanics, which is dynamics. And in the vaguest kind of way of explaining, I would say that the mechanics is what can we do in the game, and the dynamics is what is the player actually doing in the game. But I have personally seen books where people have used mechanics and dynamics kind of interchangeably. So, be aware that they're very, very close, but generally mechanics would be the rules and the dynamics are the gameplay. This is presentation of something called the MDA framework, which is mechanics, dynamics, and aesthetics, which again builds on this idea that the mechanics are the set of rules, the fundamental elements of the game. The dynamics is what the interactions are like, the actual gameplay while you're playing, and the aesthetics is the emotional response of the players. Again, I put this in the question is, what makes this game fun, right? And the idea about this framework is to notice that when you're a designer, you usually start from the mechanics. You think about the rules, you think about the gameplay, and then you think about what would be the aesthetics, how will the game actually look and feel in terms of, let's say, the theme, the colors, and so on, music. But when you're the player, you actually go from the other direction. You start by looking at the aesthetics and deciding, is this a game that is relevant for me, right? Is this going to be fun for what I'm looking for? And then after you assess the aesthetics, you go into the dynamics. You see, do I have fun playing this game? And as you play the game, more and more you uncover what the rules, what the mechanics are that the designers actually put into place. So it's interesting to think about it that as a designer, your perspective is actually the opposite of the perspective of the player. But as long as you keep these things in mind, it always improves your process. So that's a positive thing. Some example of dynamics. I assume that everybody has played some kind of games. It doesn't have to be. I'm not expecting you guys to be like serious gamers. It's fine if your favorite game is Uno. I'm just saying that every person probably have played at some point in your life some kind of game. So we have this sense about what gameplay is, but here are some examples of gameplays that you might see in some modern video games, territorial acquisition, collection, destruction. It's harder for me to see the other side. Survival is very popular these days. And you can kind of see that these are very, very different. So when you get into a game, you need to to set your mind into a specific kind of dynamics, right? However, people, designers, have also played a lot with combining these dynamics in interesting and new ways, right? So when we're going to do our activity in a couple of minutes, I'm going to assign you guys some games, hopefully games you've never seen before. And I will ask you to try to discern what are the themes, what are the genres, what are the dynamics, and so forth. And try to see if you can understand what is the gameplay. And let's see what the results are going to be from all of that. Okay? I see there's something in chat. Is there a question?
It's just a link to the.
Oh, the link to the Sage pointer. Another interesting factor to think about when we talk about games and why they're fun is this question of challenge, right? So a lot of games require skill. It doesn't have to be mechanical skill, but it could be something like knowing the lore better. It could be something like having sharper visual acuity. But it could also be something like better dexterity, understanding how to work within the mechanics better and the dynamics. In any case, we expect people to kind of learn as they go within the game to learn more and more the skills that are relevant for success in that game. And we define, I didn't define it. This is an established thing for a long time ago, called the flow channel, which indicates that as players start playing, usually their skills are kind of low, and then they learn and develop those skills. And as they develop those skills, the challenge of doing things within the game suddenly drops. And then that's when the game designer will say, oh, then I will make it harder. So now you need to continue to develop your skills further to overcome the next challenge. When you learn to overcome the next challenge, that's when the game designer will say, oh, now I'm going to make it even harder. So you will have to advance further in developing your skill, and so on and so forth. It kind of loops around where the player learns a new skill, overcomes the challenges, gets a new difficulty, and so on. And it's important to maintain this flow channel because if the game is too easy, the players are probably not going to play it because they'll play maybe a couple of minutes and be like, well, this is easy. There's no point in playing it, right? And if the game is too challenging, they don't have time to acquire those skills. they're just gonna be frustrated and they're not gonna want to play anymore because this is a badly designed game and no one can do it and just throw the keyboard and go play something else that they can actually learn to play. Right? And people themselves play for different reasons. So there's a theoretical game designer called Bartle, who have kind of coined this idea of player types. And there are four in the original design of Bartle's player types, which is killer, achiever, socializer, and explorer. And the idea is that people have a different internal motivation to why they want to play games. Some people want to stomp on noobs. That's what they want to do. They want to be the best, and they want everybody else to cry salty tears. But other people just do it because they want to feel self-accomplished. So the achievers, they want to know, oh, I managed to solve all the riddles. This is something that makes me feel good. Okay. There's people that are explorers, those are the people that just enjoy finding new things. So as long as the game delivers new ideas, new stories, new techniques, new anything, they're still in it. Once things become repetitive, they'll be like, well, okay, this was a good run, all done, right? And then there's people that are into the socializer, which is actually the largest group. And this encompasses multiple things. It means also playing with friends, but it also means being in a game to see what people are doing, to see what characters are doing, what the story is evolving, and so forth. So people, again, are looking for very different kinds of things from games. Okay. So, with all this introduction about what makes games fun or what makes games, I now want us to have a little activity. I don't know, Kevin, did you want to participate as well? We have another person here. Shivani can also participate if you want. And then we'll have maybe 4 groups online.
Sure. So just the first four.
Or 3 groups of 3, 4. Yeah. So if you look over here, I have 6 games. So if you're 4 groups, just make sure you choose a game that no one in your group has ever played before, because I want to get your input on kind of new games that you're not familiar with. And I put, for every game, I put a little video. I put a link to the Steam page for the game, so you can look up more stuff about it. And again, we're just trying to understand what is this game. You know what? I'm going to bring this here. Trying to understand what is this game, how do we play it, how do we win, who is it for, and how does that game make you feel? Okay. Do we have breakout rooms? Yeah, we can randomly assign people. Without assigning me anything.
Yeah.
And we'll come back in like 10 minutes or so to talk about what we see.
Oh, um, it's,
Professional server, online. Login. Can do by dragging the board and someone playing this game, so it's playing one of the games. Come on, you wanna play the game?
Can I play the game?
What?
Can I play the game hero?
No, we're not creating the game, we're just evaluating existing games.
So how do I debug it? Can I play? Or,
So you can play these videos.
oh, I see.
So if you click on it, you see that it's a video, it's a YouTube channel, so it's playing right now. And you might need to. Oh, there is sound. So it's a game called First.
Which game do I play? I don't think it's- Just set an approach. See what it is. It's on. See what it's on through the
I don't see anyone else on the board, so I don't think that they are.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, it was part of the video, but after that. You guys have ideas about what the genre is and what
Residents was us.
The second do about what she's saying. That's certainly for other places. Get more information. Together the story is what actually happened.
Some system started on the head to build this huge shape. This was question just section.
Finding the tools will be
To have.
I think it's all to put the split in order.
So it looks to the the sun where this sun is. Because it's was us, we learned. And just more special. Very, usually was just.
Database.
Yeah, that's the interface that you see. That's what the interface looks like. It looks like a database.
But I'm that idea of something. Well, instead, but I feel like all of something.
Oh, they have to interact with
Right. I mean, I know them sorts of areas. Right.
some system started on the head to build this huge shape. He left up your roots. It's all the girl. So far, she had silence while so I'm wondering if I need to say what the guys please infatuation the one. Who's wearing shirt. The blue turtleneck shirt and jeans. It has a watch, so a really nice one. It's a gift from his boss, Eric. Has coat, a little bit of coat.
Zoom in.
Sure, yeah. Yes. Sure. And that is. Yes. So,
Manipulating.
someday.
Are we all back in? Or somebody?
Yeah.
Okay. So Let's start with the group that posted, because I know that you have something in mind. So can one of you walk us through what your game is about? Sound recording. This is the Vampire Survivors group.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Now we can hear you.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So the Vampire Survivor game is kind of like or in the video they market it as an RPG, but not where you actually interact with the monsters. It's like the choices you make through moving throughout the map is where they get the RPG aspect of it. And I guess I'll just go by the our stickies. So the theme of this game is supernatural, and the genre listed on Steam was action. And the term that they use is bullet hell because you're just the mechanic is that you're constantly shooting bullets to enemies or that are closing in on you. And the other genre was RPG. And to play this game, you move around the map to dodge and kill monsters at the same time as you wait for dawn to come, because you have to survive till dawn. And moving around the map allows you to find weapon upgrades. So as you upgrade your weapons, the monsters also get upgraded. So it gets overwhelming as more time passes. So to win, you first have to survive till dawn and you have to pass multiple levels. So in the game, or in this image up here, it shows that I guess it's kind of like a flatlands or forest, but in the game, the levels can move up into like actual buildings, so the spaces are more confined. For who is this game for? The person reviewing this game was really trying to sell that it was cheap. It was, I think they said they got it for 40 cents, but on Steam it's currently for $5. And because this is a game that doesn't have high level graphics, it's suitable for pretty much everyone. And emotions that this game evokes, Lowell and I said stress, pleasure, and anticipation. So stress comes from when you're nearing the end of the level where the horde gets overwhelming. Pleasure is when you what you feel when you successfully survive, as well as the act of just constantly killing enemies. And then anticipation, which is to wait until the end of the level.
Would you play this game?
I have not.
No, would you in the future?
Oh, would I?
Yes.
Yeah, I think the price point is pretty. Price point sold it for me. Lots of other games are more expensive.
Okay. Cool, cool. Let's go to the group in here that did her story. Okay. So what is this game about?
So, one of the investigator, so from the city.
So in case you didn't hear, this is about you being an investigating a mystery that is happening that has happened before the game. And how is the game actually played?
I've never seen a game like this, so I'm really confused at this time. But it seems like you can, access the database of the videos and you can watch that.
So that is exactly what you do. You get an access to a database, you search keywords. and that the keywords will give you several options for videos, and you're supposed to watch each one of the videos, and each one of them reveals something about the story, right? And it helps you find more keywords that maybe you'll want to search in the future. Right? What kind of players do you think this is for? What?
It actually be a training video game for those who want to go into crime investigation.
That's your training mind right there. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, I couldn't imagine anyone who would want to do it for fun because it's watching clips that don't change.
Well, they changed. I played this game.
So the outcome changes, can change.
So your perception of what happens depends on which videos you hit. So for example, I played 5 hours of the game. I have not watched all of the videos. I've not uncovered all of the videos. And in the end, you're asked, do you now understand what happened to your friend, whatever, and so on. And that's pretty much the goal. This is this is for your own interests, like reading a mystery novel. But you have to uncover the pieces yourself because no one is just giving them to you. So this is maybe more for the exploring type players, right? What other games have you online folks? If anyone did, I don't know. Did anyone else do the activity? Is that a no? So that is a shame because again, this is just to see like new games. Again, very, very briefly. So this Street Uni X game is basically a sports game. So this is all about comboing keystrokes to get various combo movements. So this is about having dexterity and creating these, following these obstacle courses, and in every obstacle course you have to do specific tasks and so on. So it requires a lot of mechanical skill in terms of operating the control, and it's kind of funny. So this Exit 8 game. See, this is a game that, interestingly, in terms of what you actually need to do in the game, you do very little. You walk, but you need to decide if you're going to walk forward or backwards. If you walk forwards, you get to see this tunnel and the posters and this person walking at you. But sometimes something is going to be different in that tunnel. And when something is different in the tunnel, you're supposed to go back. So it's a very subtle way of playing spot the difference. And the theme of this game, I think maybe we'll see soon. The theme of the game is actually horror. So again, not much in terms of the things that you can do, but again, you see something weird coming at you, you go back in the other direction. The storyteller game is the theme is kind of fairy tales, and this is a game where you actually create these little story snippets based on characters and activities that you are given in each one of the levels. So you get these actions, you get these characters, and you as the player need to just tell what the story is in the little like panels, panels that you get. And there's a correct way and an incorrect way of doing it. So the theme is kind of fairy tale. There's a lot of comedic aspects to it, and the mechanics are basically just drag and drop. It's not anything clever. And the last one called Headbangers Rhythm Royale. This one is a real loss when you don't have the sound, but you can kind of maybe guess that it's a rhythm-based game where you're expected to play mini games that are rhythm-centric. So, for example, you need to do specific actions based on the rhythm. Let's say da 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 da, and then if you're missing it, then you lose points. And it's a royale in the sense that you start with like 100 players, and then as people play more and more mini games, people drop out of the race, and only one person will win the whole thing. So yeah, it's really funny when you get to hear the actual pigeons do their voices. It's a funny one. Okay, so we had these really very different games, and can I come back in? And I think that probably you, as people who play games, have had a sense for each one of these games. This is something that I would maybe consider playing. This is something that I would not consider playing. And I'm sure that the cost of the game is one factor of it, but it's also, beyond that to the kind of things that are fun for you, right? So, what would you think would be a good step towards coming up with your own ideas for game designs? Just an open question. What do you guys would think would be a good step? Yes, that's an excellent answer. You would want to first identify things that you personally find fun, right? Unless someone is paying you to do a game, then you have to do whatever they find fun. But if you're doing the game, then it's up to you, right? So you want to explore what is existing games that are to your liking, right? And I think that one of the things I kind of wanted to show you with the games that I chose for the activities is that the genres, the dynamics can break between whatever the themes are into, whatever story you want to tell and whatever mechanics you want to use, you can kind of mix and match and create some really unique kind of games. So the next things I want to talk about are what is the design process, and then I'm going to talk about what are the different roles in game design. And I really am very careful to use the word process because designing is a process. And a lot of times you will see this drawing of a cycle. So design is not something you start and finish. Design is a cyclical activity that you constantly iterate and improve upon. And game design is a style of design, so it also follows the same kind of cyclical designing process. The analysis phase is usually the pre-production of the game. That's when you want to identify the kinds of game you want to create. This is exactly what we said. What is fun? What other games exist that are similar? What kind of players would find this fun? What niche has not been explored? Maybe that you could put your game in that would make it kind of more competitive. How many players are going to play the game? What kind of social interactions? Is this a solo game? Is this an online game with other people, and so on? And another thing you have to do is identify your resources. So if you're going to do this activity of game design, what do you have in your arsenal to actually do this activity? Do you have art assets? Do you have someone that can do those art assets? Do you have money? Do you have someone that can help you write a story and so on? So you have to think, what is it that I already have? So the design part is where you actually do the, get the design inspiration, you create the documents, maybe wireframe and storyboards, and mock-ups of the actual game. And I'm kind of trying to push a lot of ideas into one presentation, but I really care a lot about this design process story. So it's about getting the right design, but also getting that design right. So you have to do this a lot of times. And usually when you try to come up with an idea, you generate as many ideas as you can. And some of them are going to be good, some of them are going to be bad. That's fine. Some of them are going to be wacky, some of them are going to be simple. And you think about all of them. And then over time, you choose a few more promising ones and you develop them in parallel. And then you add more ideas and you think about them some more. You choose a few more and so on and so forth. And this is a process called elaborate, reduce, repeat. And it's usually represented by this kind of funnel where you start by getting all of these lots of ideas, then choosing some, then adding more, choosing some, adding more, and so on, until you get that one idea that you've spent a lot of filtering cycles to get to, right? Brainstorm itself as an activity, I think, I don't know if is Jason still doing brainstorming as a workshop? Okay. Well, brainstorming as an activity is also something that would be good to have as an activity, but I don't think we have time. But generally, sketching is what I find the most useful part of brainstorming activity. You can sketch on pieces of paper really, really quickly, really fast. It's just paper, so you don't feel like too precious about it. You can throw it away, get more paper, draw more ideas. Plentiful, and you have to make it so it's just clear enough so you can sketch it and show it to other people and they will understand and you can go on and design something else. So the next phase, again, you have analysis, design, prototype, evaluate. Prototype is when you actually make either a paper prototype or a digital prototype. And the idea is that once you have a prototype, you can test how things feel a lot quicker than it just by kind of speculating. And the prototype doesn't have to be a complete representation of your game. It can usually just be representative of an aspect of the game, and then you can decide moving on. This is working, this is not working, and so on. Paper prototypes are really, really crucial. And if you're anything like me, they are really fun to make. So don't underestimate how much you can actually implement and test using paper or cardboard or whatever, even though it's not interactive by itself. There's a lot of aspects that you can mimic with various ways of adding little tabs of paper and so on. You can actually make a lot of very cool and practical things that will help you establish this initial sense of what is working for you and what is not working for you. And lastly, evaluate. This is the part of the process that usually involves testing the prototype with users and any other kind of heuristics to evaluate the game. And notice that I put separately the bullet point for playtesting. So playtesting is when you have people try the game to tell you if it's fun, if it's balanced, if it's, what they would want to play. Testing the prototype could be, is this functioning correctly to what we expect it to function? Are all the lights working correctly? Are the life bars increasing or decreasing correctly, and so forth? So it's not necessarily an aspect of, is the game doing well as a game? It could be an evaluation of, is the digital product performing as we expect the digital product to perform? So you want to have both of these separate evaluations because they tell you basically different things. So I'm trying. I want to finish that in some roles from game that you might find in game design. We'll talk about them. So game designers, writers, artists, animators, audio creators, UI UX designers, programmers, production, marketing. These are not a full and limited list of roles, and you will also have probably seen games where multiple of these roles were done by the same person. This is really dependent on how big the production company that creates a game is, and so on. And if you are on Sage, you can download these slides, and there's a lot of links throughout the slide deck, so you can kind of click on them and see where to go next. If you are on Sage, there's a button. Let me show you guys. Right here. No, it's not letting me. Here. This one that will help you download it. Okay. So game designers. Game designers have the fun job of writing documents about the game. And I say it kind of tongue-in-cheek, but also that is something that they need to do. So all of these ideas, all of these rules, all of the designed ideas need to be expressed in a way that can be communicated to other members of the team. Again, unless you're doing it all by yourself, and maybe you can keep it all in your head. But assuming you're working with other people, everything has to be documented in a way that you can express it to other people, and they can know what they're supposed to be doing with that. So there's a lot of different documents that describe the game design that the game designer is expected to produce. And if you look up online, you'll see a lot of examples for it. I know someone that worked in a commercial company where he didn't get to necessarily do things that he wanted, but he had to do a lot of the game design documents that also incorporated a lot of the money aspects of things, like how much will this cost to make and how much we expect it to make back and so forth. So depending on where you are, the documents themselves will have different levels of complexity and stress different things. But of course, this is maybe why you're in this talk. Maybe this is the thing that sounds most appealing, because you get to decide on the goals and the rules and all those other things, and you get to test play the game and say this is cool, this is boring, and make those changes and so on. Then, of course, there's writers. Now, not all games have stories in them. So a game like Her Story obviously is deeply enmeshed with story, because someone has to write all of those scripts. But a game like what did you see? Which one? Tetris. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Game like Tetris doesn't have a game that drives what is happening. You get a geometric shape and you move it, right? So And it's valid in games not to have a story. But when you do, you need to have a way of writing it. And writing games is not quite the same as writing, a text for a book or a text for a script, because the nature of games is to be interactive. So when we talk about interactive stories, we usually think about stories that live within like little story chunks. And each one of these story chunks is connected or not connected to other story chunks. And these are four very commonly used ways of arranging these story chunks. The linear narrative, which is just tell a piece of story, then move to the next one, then move to the next one. The open world, which is when you walk around the world and you choose a random direction and you get to a village and you get to experience whatever the story is happening in that village. You can or decide not to participate in that story and just go to somewhere else, to a different place, a windmill, and then participate in the story of that location and so on. But there's no necessary leads between one story point to another. A more complex story mechanism is the branching narrative, in which every time you make a decision in the story, it splits the story into two possible continuation trees, and then your character will continue down one of those trees until the next choice that they make, where again you will split to another potential story outcomes. That's usually when people end up having like, oh, I got the happy end. Oh, I got the sad end. I got the happy end from here, and so on. So that's usually how that's formed, by having these branching narratives. And a kind of way of, I guess, integrating the branching narrative idea with the linear narrative, because, and this is a problem with the branching narrative, it's exponential growth of story chunks. So if you have even 7 decision points, you're going to have a ginormous amount of story chunks that you're going to have as the ending point for your story. So a way to kind of go around it is to have this parallel narrative where you have certain amount of choices that you can make, but then they all reconvene back to a similar point in the story, and so on several times. But in any case, as a writer, you're going to have to write these weird ways of interacting with characters by saying, oh, if they say this, then you will say this. But if they say this, you will say this other thing. It's a weird way of writing. And you also have to kind of understand that it's very likely that most people are not going to see a big chunk of your story. So, hubris aside. Now, in terms of artists, there's a lot of different kinds of directions that an artist within this game development kind of track can take. One of the earlier maybe uses for artists is the concept art, in which you get that document that the game designer designed. You read what the potential aim of the game is, what the rules of the game, what the intention of the games are, and then you start sketching out ideas of what the characters could be, what the items could be, what the background could be, and you're essentially kind of trying to define the ambiance and what's going to be the possibilities for the game. And obviously, a lot of these are going to be thrown away, right? So this is creating a lot of different options, just so the group, the design group, can choose an option, right? And again, there's a lot of different links here if you want to read the stories where these images are from. Another type of artist role would be the 3D modeling artists. So a lot of the games, at least some of the games that we saw in the previously, like the pigeons and the exit 8, use 3D models. So someone has to make those 3D models. Usually, they start from some kind of a 2D sketch. Maybe not when you're just trying to do a person, but when you do something more complex, you look at what the concept artist designed, and you take it and you bring it into a full shape for the sake of the game. In these specific images, you're also kind of showing how you have to have this stance for polygon economy, because if you do something that's too refined, it's going to make the game slower. So there's various things to consider as you make the 3D models, and perhaps you need to do multiple different versions of the same kind of element. And there's a lot of roles that, again, could be done by the same person or could be done by completely different people, depending on how big the company is, including making textures with 3D models, making special effects, lighting, particle systems, and so on. And then, of course, there's 2D art. One example of which is the pixel art, which is kind of widespread now, I guess. There's a bunch of really cool tools that help you do that, and some of them are free. And this is a different set of skills than just drawing regular 2D art, because the pixel art has more limited resources, usually less colors, less resolution, and so forth. So you need to know how to fake a lot of these things, like gradients and lines, and like how do you draw a nose on a pixel and on the character that's so small in terms of its pixels. So there's a lot of balance that you need to be able to consider. There's different perspectives and so on. So a different set of skills. And then, of course, there's a role for animation. If you're doing something like pixel art, then you need to create sprite sheets which describe all of the different appearances of the movement as the character is moving about, so that when it's actually portrayed in the game, it is run very, very quickly, one frame after the other, to make that appearance of a movement. And if you're doing something like 3D animation, then you have to do a completely different set of things, where you have to build like a rigging, like an inner skeleton for your model, so that you can move that the various points separately and so on, with some restrictions on how they move and so on. But in any case, animation also requires a good sense of movement and how movement is used to create personality to characters. So if you can imagine two humanoid characters, and they would both be maybe rigged exactly the same way, but one of them would maybe walk like this, and one of them would walk like this, right? So it gives different personalities to the character the way you animate them. So it's a lot of skill to do this well. Audio is a big part of games. You have background music, you have sound effects, and you have voice line. They all bring the game together. If you've ever kind of played a game in silence, it could be eerie. And also, I kind of put some pictures here. There's some sounds in games that are so built in with our playing experience that you can just see it and you can hear in your head, finish it, and then it's like waka waka waka. Yeah. So it's gonna become something that is kind of ingrained in the players to associate the sound with. Yeah, I think that the Pac-Man sound is one of the most iconic ones. And when he dies and he goes, right? So sound is really kind of effective. And then UI UX designers. So as someone that comes from the direction of human-computer interaction, this is maybe something that more appeals to me. You have to design an experience and user interface that feels like it belongs in the world of the game without overshadowing the game itself. And there are actually quite a few different types of is it? Let me move it over. There's actually a few types of UIs within games. I think the most easy kind of to explain is the non-diegetic and the diegetic type of user interfaces. The non-diegetic interfaces would be things that are not part of the game story and are not necessarily part of the game space. So imagine you have a 3D game, but at the top you have a column that says, this is level 5, something like that. So this is information for you as the player, but it's not necessarily something that the character needs to know in the story. As opposed to diegetic, which is something that is both relevant to the story and lives within the space of the game. So if you're a character inside a game and you have a battery gauge on your spacesuit and you see how many colors, how many bars are colored, and it indicates how much your battery is charged, that's a UI element. It tells you something about the state of the game, but is enmeshed within the world of the game. So these are very different kinds of approaches to to user interfaces in games. And there's also the counter of being part of the game story, but not in the space, and vice versa. And then there's programmers who are the people that need to make sure that they take all of these different cool stuff and make it run together based on the rules and so forth that the game designer designed. And there are a lot of very good development environments these days that help towards making that development. So no one has to write a game engine from scratch unless they want to. And obviously, for some people, the most exciting thing they could do is marketing and getting money and making sure that there is money to make the game. So how is this relevant to data science? It not necessarily has to be relevant to data science, but what I kind of want to draw your attention to is this additional concept of gamification, which is that the principles of fun can be applied to other fields, making them more engaging. So all these things about, oh, you have to have a goal, you have to have a challenge, you have to make sure that you stay in that challenge channel and so forth. All these things can be applied in other areas that are not necessarily games and help those things appear more fun. And this is a little example that I just discovered recently. So this is a game that someone who took a visualization class decided to create. It's an online game that changes daily. This is the link for it, graphs.world. And you basically get a graph and 5 options of what is represented in this graph. And it's like your daily Wordle. Your daily graphs would be to kind of try to guess what is this graph represented. And it makes you kind of stop and think, use your critical thinking about these different, it's hard to see in this image, but if you go to that website, you'll see these different kind of categories of potential data. Does it make sense for them to have this kind of trend lines? So it makes you really think about that. In addition, so you guys are students, you can decide that you want to pursue more stuff relating to game design within academia. Academia has a lot of researchers that work on either studying games or studying how to use games within other fields to be more engaging and so forth. So, for example, the concept of serious games or games that have a purpose. So again, like you said, it's an example for the training for people that have to train to be, I don't know, firefighters. Maybe they can have some kind of a game that helps them feel more engaged with that kind of experience. As in the side, there are some conferences, especially in my field, which is human-computer interaction, which have student game competitions. So this is an example of our main conference called Kai, and every year they have a game competition in which they want people to, students to create games that either have some innovative form of interface or that have some innovative use of some kind of a domain. That is, again, this is research. It has to have some kind of a serious attribute to it. But interesting opportunities. Again, if anyone is interested with actually pursuing something like that, you can contact me. I'll be happy to talk. Now, if you guys are in Manila, I'm afraid I don't quite know what the situation in Hilo is. But if you guys are in Manila, there are classes you can take. The ICS 45 is the game development class. It's usually given by Jason Lee. But also, we've just recently added a bunch of creative computational media classes that have a lot of the skills like rendering and animation. If you want to say something about it, you're welcome. But there's a lot of these skills that I kind of mentioned glancingly before that you can spend like a whole semester just trying to understand. Okay, so you're welcome to that as well. And lastly, if you are in Manila, we do have a game dev club. It is hosted in ICS, but anyone in Manila, even if you're in a different department, you're welcome to participate in the game dev class, in the game dev club. They are currently in the middle of a game development cycle, so you probably can't join right now, but they'll be finishing it at the end of the month, and then you can kind of lurk in their Discord or whatever and see when they're going to start a new one. And like really participate. And they usually allow people to choose exactly what path they want to do. So some people will work on the programming, but other people will work on writing, other people will work on music, other people will work on art. So it's really a flexible kind of way of actively engaging with game design in a group with other people. And that is what I want to tell you guys about game design. I feel like I kind of crammed a lot of stuff into this, so I hope it wasn't too rushed and too heavy. But that was it. So if you want to contact me, I don't know if my contact information was on the website, but maybe it will be. And this is the workshop survey. Please fill it out for Shivani. Okay. Okay, I don't mind.
I'm gonna put the link to the survey in the chat as well.
Okay.
Great, thank you so much.
I was rushing a little bit because I was realizing that if I said things slowly, it would take 2 hours. There's the whole thing.
That
So
was fascinating. So many resources and.
yeah, there's so much.
Yeah, I'm in the college of education. I'm working in the education with creating the educational game to teach coding.
Okay, yeah.
So I think a lot of the resource You think it's gonna be part of my direction.
Are you a programmer or are you,
Yeah, I'm a programmer. So I'm making a multiplayer game. So something like this. Sure.
animal coding?
And it's a multiplayer game. 4 people can work together. It's a town-based and custom project. Not that it's now you can just like